Thank you very much, the master of the ceremony, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me quickly beg your indulgence. Those behind, please, can you move front so that you will be in the front line? People behind, please. Please, please, please. Thank you. No, I mean, those behind. Can you close the gap? I can see we don't have anybody in the front row. Prof, sir. Thank you. Usually a session like this, that is after the previous two sessions, this is the last one for today. I know people are already tired, especially a session that comes immediately after lunch. People are already exhausted. The last thing in your mind now is maybe your flight or how to go back to your destination. I would like to beg your indulgence so that we will do a very small exercise so that we can activate, our reasoning. I know. Can we all stand up, and stretch? Thank you. Thank you very much. I know I'm asking for too much, but please tolerate me. I'm a media man. Media people are always like that. They're a pest. So can we stretch our hands? Turn around. Thank you very much. Let's sit down. A round of applause, for yourself. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this session. Let me start by saying the global oil industry is faced with multitude of challenges today, one of which is the requirement for a careful balancing of aspirations of energy transition and energy security. Notwithstanding the push towards renewables, it is certain that conventional and unconventional hydrocarbon will remain key component of energy mix needed to meet the growing global energy demand in decades to come. The rising demand for energy across the globe due to increase in population, economic development, in addition to a number of other factors, has continued to alter the complexity of global energy space. In adopting global future fuels, the nexus between energy poverty and climate change must both be addressed simultaneously. For the continent of Africa, that is rich in natural resources but still energy poor, the current energy transition backed by Western vested interest must not come at the expense of affordable and reliable energy for our people, cities, and industries. Amid these dynamics, the industry in Nigeria must make choices. Such choices must be one that will secure energy future and at the same time secure the environment. Fortunately, Nigeria has made a choice with the adoption of gas-to-power strategy along with hydroelectricity and renewable energy roadmap. As we were told, Nigeria is developing smart homegrown goals for its energy transition. The design of the PIA 2021 lent credence to the decade of gas mantra of the federal government in recognition of the role natural gas can play as a viable and globally acceptable transition fuel. The regulatory institutional policy provisions in the PIA articulated measurable objectives and expected outcomes, primarily in terms of petroleum availability and sustainability to drive its petroleum-dependent economy. The topic for today's session is Petroleum Industry Act 2021 and Energy Transition, Managing the Future of Petroleum Economy in Nigeria. This session aims to explore and discuss strategic implementation options of selected PIA 2021 provisions to promote petroleum value chain optimization for sustainable economic development in the energy transition era. Mr. Chairman, sir, let me reintroduce, the members of this panel that we are going to discuss this. From my from my left, we have the person we call the ACE, the Authority Chief Executive, in the person of Engineer Ahmad Farouk, who is ably represented here by one of his executive directors, by the name Hajia Zainab Gobir, Executive Director, Economic Regulations and Strategic Planning. Thank you very much for coming, madam. Also, we have an individual who is wearing 2 caps, or 3 caps. First, he's representing his Chief Executive Officer, who we usually call Commission Chief Executive of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, in the person of Dr. Engineer Benga Komolafe, who is ably represented here by from my immediate left by Dr. Kelechi Onyekachi Afebu. Am I right, sir? Afebu. You're welcome, sir. Then we have our erudite professor, one of the few, intellectual manpower that we have in Nigeria, and who, unfortunately, we allow him to be taken by other institutions, foreign institutions, because we are not really utilizing him. We have Professor Wumi Iledari, who is the GNPC Professorial Chair, Oil and Gas Studies, University of Cape Coast, Ghana. Professor, you're welcome, sir. While we await for other panelists that will join us later, I think it is very important, to start this session now. Prof, let me start from you. Energy transition. Let me take it, let me go a bit, into history. In 2019, while we're enjoying ourselves in the country, despite the fact that, there are hardships, and everything, towards December, boom, we learned about one virus, the virus that put the whole world into confusion. And we later get to know the name of the virus called Corona. After that, we went into lockdown. Everything, turned upside down in the whole world. After that, the scientists came up, with a vaccine that was able, to bring us back, to our normal, work. And today, we have gone back, to our work and everything. But today, again, we're facing another thing, that there is a crisis between Russia and Ukraine. During the Corona period, the oil prices went down to 0, even -0. The oil countries, producing countries, suffered at that time, lack of revenue. But today, we have a crisis somewhere in the northern Europe between only two countries, and the price of petrol and energy go beyond 100. So I want to ask you, Prof, energy transition, what do you think, in your own opinion, is the lesson that we have learned in these 3 years when Corona started, and now with the crisis, between Russia and Ukraine? Can you tell us, what lesson probably, we have learned in these two, events that I mentioned.
Well, thank you very much, CEO Musa. It's always a pleasure to be home and to continue to participate in the intellectual development of young professionals. What lessons can we learn from what happened within the last 3 years and the energy transition mantra? One, the consequences of rapid transition from petroleum to renewable energy will be dissimilar. And we saw it from COVID-19. The type of sufferings that countries endure is not the same across the world. There are some places in which close to 1 million people died. And there are places in which it didn't happen. So certainly, if we do a rapid transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy, and we force everybody to follow the same path, the consequences will be unbearable for some. Secondly, if you look at the Ukraine-Russian, I will actually reframe it, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the implication on the global economic landscape, the impacts have not been the same. Yes, every country in the world has experienced they've experienced inflation, but the extent of the inflationary impact on the economy has not been the same. To me, I want to continue to preach what I call energy mix strategy on the basis of countries' development profile. Even if you look at the impact of global warming, it's not necessarily the same all over the world in terms of economic impact and even temperature increases and decreases. So in my opinion, I just want to say quickly, the energy transition that we are talking about today is not new. And it's not even going to end with moving from fossil fuel to renewable. Energy transition is not static, it is dynamic. And the strategy to address it must not be static. It must not be homogeneous, and it must not be dictated. And that's probably where I will stand. But if you allow me, I think the PIA 2021, to a large extent, has some energy transition implication. It was sold to us badly that we skewed our fiscal terms on the basis of energy transition mantra. They are reversible, and those are things in which we hope to talk about. We should not allow the developed world, in my opinion, to use energy transition to make us like beggars. And that's where our leadership, especially in the energy sector, must keep posterity in view, even as they make decisions as to how to address energy transition. Because majority of us, I know I won't be here in 25 years. I don't want to be. I want to go and rest. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yeah, energy transition. Then we have PIA 2021 that is signed last year, August, by President and Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The PIA started gradually. We have institutions of the PIA. We have the upstream regulatory commission, and we have the downstream regulatory authority. And today, we witness the birth of the new NNPC, which is called NNPC Limited. So let me ask Engineer Kelechi, Dr. Kelechi, sorry. What can you give us? What is your message? What can you tell us, about this new institution, especially the regulatory institutions that came up? What do you think, or what are we going to see different from what we used to see before? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And when we were drafting the PIA, then the PIB, because it was my privilege to be one of the drafters, we started with very core questions, leading to core objectives for the law. Basically asking ourselves, what do we want to achieve transformationally with this law? And so we compartmentalized the concepts, into buckets and sought to extray them further. So when it came to institutions that would arise pursuant to the PIA, of course, when it went past, we were clear in our minds that we wanted to achieve a clear delineation between policy making and policy execution. We wanted to be clear that we want institutions that were far removed and ring-fenced from political interference. We wanted institutions that we could call rules-based institutions that functioned on core principles of transparency, accountability, and importantly, predictability. We wanted institutions that you could walk into and challenge their performance, because the performance matrices were known ahead of time. So there was no arbitrariness. So we set out to design those institutions such that the regulator would have overarching powers to regulate without interference. So, and we also wanted to achieve focus. And that's why, even though there was a lot of hue and cry about the bifurcation of the single regulatory structure that we had, which was the ODPR, we insisted and sold to the generality of the collectivity, the stakeholders, that we needed to create another regulatory agency that would focus on the midstream and the downstream, because we had an eye on the multiplier effect that that agency would engender. Everybody understands that the upstream sector had been saturated and was just focused on finding the oil, selling the oil, sharing the spoils from the oil. The real multiplier effect to the society was not felt. That's why, since I was in primary school, everyone said the oil sector accounted for at least 80 to 90% of our foreign exchange. But in terms of contribution to GDP, it never really surpassed 10%. So we sought to change that by creating a regulatory focus on the midstream and the downstream that will cause that multiplier to happen, to ensure sustained prosperity for the people. Because not everybody here can own an oil block, because the barrier to entry is so high. I mean, look at the marginal fields that we just awarded about 3 weeks ago. The list of the signature bonuses, go. These are public information. It's millions of dollars. How many of us here can afford that? Well, in the midstream and the downstream sector, we created a plethora of licenses that then opens up that space such that you and I, the rank and file of every strata of society, can participate. And that therein lies the potential for the multiplier and, of course, the sustained prosperity of every Nigerian.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to throw the same question to Dr. Zainab. Beyond the change of name, what do we expect, from the Nigerian midstream, downstream petroleum authority in this new PIA regulatory, framework.
Okay, thank you. All protocols duly observed. You expect transparency, accountability. You expect reaching people out there on the streets, day-to-day, real-life persons. And most importantly, we reach out to the youths, business-minded, small, medium enterprise entrepreneurs. And someone would ask me, what are your plans? How are you gonna get there? We're putting in a lot of policy. The government has put in some policy that would favor every Nigerian. So I'll list them for you, because I think earlier a gentleman had asked me what policies are on ground. So I'll take it upon myself to find policies that will help and abate you in what you want to do in terms of in the oil and gas and energy sector, yeah? So we have the Decade of Gas. You can look that up online to get all the requirements for it and what it does. We have the National Gas Expansion Program. That's also a government program. We have the Central Bank of Nigeria's 250 billion Nigerian Intervention Fund to encourage downstream gas infrastructure development. That's another policy. Then, of course, the enactment of the Petroleum Industry Act itself, it is a major change which had to go through our our representatives, right? They had to pass the law. When someone was telling me that they don't have that relationship with members of the House, lawmakers, they are listening. That's why this is happening. Mr. President is listening. Then last but not the least, we also have, hang on one second, the gas standalone program, okay? So these are 5 major policies, programs that are out there in the public sphere for you to take advantage of. Now, I wanted to talk about how we can get there. My colleague and friend and brother, told you something, how regular you, me, people, because not everybody can afford, $100 million or $1 million to buy an oil block. And your group of students, I feel compelled to actually share this with you. Just imagine you gather 5 of you, not 5 friends necessarily. You find someone that's business savvy. You have someone that has potential capital. You have 2 or 3 other people that have something you can use to do a business. So let me just give you a short one. We want to set up a cafe. Find that friend that has a generator. Partner up with him. Find that friend that has a spot. Maybe the mom has the spot, they don't use it, it's closed down, right? You interact. Find that friend that's business and financially responsible to ensure that how you guys do your day-to-day financial transaction. Then you find that friend that's well knowledgeable in policies and government affairs and what benefits are out there for SMEs, right? When you create this team, you start business. Don't wait to get 100 million naira into your account or 20 million naira into your account before you become a small business. No, it's all about collaborating, finding the right partners, and then you shed the work amongst yourselves, then you share the profits among yourselves based on investments. So to round it up, I wanted to give you guys a clear day-to-day realistic targets of what you can do. The 5 programs I've given you, I'll also make it available to the Secretariat, so if you need to probe further, but they're real and we're working on them. And like I mentioned to you earlier, we're going to start a platform where your problems, your observations will be noted. Those of you that have very good, initiatives that can resolve these issues. It will be a platform for you to go and do same. And my president, I was even thinking, if we do this year in, year out, where you start setting a milestones for those of us that are in the government, even private sector people, and the following year, we give you a report card on this is what we discussed, this is what we committed to, this is where we are. It now becomes something where you students have your hands on. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that will bring the traction. It will break that wall of invisibility, and we'll all be fine. I don't know if that helps you or not.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Let me quickly go back to Prof. Energy transition and the PIA in Nigeria. Initially, the Western countries, didn't classify gas as part of the clean fuel that will make up, the transition fuel. But within this crisis between Russia and Ukraine, we have seen how, the European countries are rushing back to Africa and any other place they can get gas. And they have even classified gas and nuclear energy as part of green energy, so to say. Nigeria has already adopted gas as a transition fuel. And we have the decade of gas, mantra, which is pushing the oil transition, fuel transition, of the federal government. Do you think our policies today and the execution, apart from, the hype we're giving, the decade of gas, do you think, are we going to, we are going to achieve, the decade of gas mantra? So, yeah, Professor. I don't know if you get my...
No, I got all your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you again very much. I think I'm a very firm believer on the PIA, and I still consider it laudable that it has become a law. I'm a little bit worried in the implementation strategy, and we continue to say it. Luckily, I represent myself here. Nobody's representing me. And I represent an academic community who should always stand up and say it the way it is. If we implement the PIA 2021 judiciously with posterity in view and not personal interest and not prosperity of today, I think Nigeria will come on top. Do I believe we can do that? Yes. Are we going to do that? It's a different question. Because the optics right now is not the way I would have loved PIA to address the energy transition. Because I read in the paper today, I think it might be wrong, that NNPC sets a price of a petroleum product. That, in a way, is a divergence for the original intent of the PIA 2021. Perhaps it is part of press sentiments. I don't know. You see, Nigeria is blessed with, again, I use the word blessed because hydrocarbon, how it chooses where it's supposed to be, is a different thing. That we have an abundance petroleum resources. It's not our own making. But the ability to use it under the circumstances that we grow the economy like it did in nearly every country is in our hands. And that's what I think the PIA has laid down critically. But the implementers of PIA must pay attention to certain strategy that is in the intent of the writer of the PIA is very critical, with energy transition knocking at the door. I've said it in many platforms. Don't violate what I call fiscal rule of general application because of now. The the fiscal rule of general application is perpetual. But it could be done in such a way that the dynamics of events can make the law accommodative at any point in time. That was the original intent of PIA as we have it, but good enough, and I'll continue to say it. We have a natural gas policy natural gas policy document of 2017, well crafted, even before energy transition became a subject matter. We also have a petroleum policy document that is gazetted. All the people that are in the position to implement this must look at this as a doctrine. On a regular basis, go back and revisit it. Find out the intent. Oh, I think I just heard the upstream, my friend Kelechi, talking about drafting and putting something in PIB 2020. No, what you have in PIB that became PIA started from 2008. So you must look at all the principles. They don't necessarily have to be your employees. You cut them when there's a confusion about the interpretation. Seek their advice. If you don't do that, when you are gone, they will bring another person and it's going to disabuse everything that you have done, and energy transition will catch up on you. If I'm advising all of those that are there implementing, all of the people that have participated, including our president, on the journey of PIA since 2000, they are still alive. Don't look at yourself as being there today and not get connected to know the intent, because majority of people implementing it today don't know the intent of PIA when it started. And that is the only way, in my opinion, that PIA can add the type of value that was intended, with energy transition still knocking at the door. By the way, don't worry. It's about personal interest. It's about energy security. It's about economic security. That's why all of a sudden coal that is dirty are being refired. Africa cannot afford to be hit with energy crisis because we are economically poor.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think I would take that point. Africa cannot afford to be hit by economic crisis because we are economically poor. Let me quickly recognize the presence of Dr. Timothy Okon, the managing partner, Tenor Energy Resources Limited. He just joined us. Doctor, you're welcome. Let me quickly go back to Dr. Zainab. Prof mentioned something I think that is of interest to everyone in this hall, talking about the issue of we wake up this morning and we saw in the news about price increase or increment about petroleum products. And we know that that responsibility is a responsibility of Nigerian Midstream Downstream Regulatory Authority. Formerly, it was PPRA that was doing that, job. So I don't know, how true is this review, and what do you think? Is it that the institution has not taken firm, or there's something that we don't know? Maybe you should let us know. Thank you.
All right, so with all due respect to my pressmen and women here, it's a matter of a quick story. So NNPC does not set the price for any filling station, okay? That is the job of the authority. What NNPC does is send directives to their depots, and then they effect the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Regulatory Authority's position. So I believe maybe, the information on the way down got, most Nigerians actually impressed, have not warmed up to knowing that there's an authority. They are all still used to NNPC. And I think that is where the misconception and misinformation is coming from. So for our pressmen and women, please, let's work a little bit more on any story that comes out. Let's do what you call a fact check to make sure it's the right story. It is the mandate of NMDPRA, the authority, to make changes, not the NNPC. I hope that is clear enough.
Yeah, it answers the question. Before I go to Dr. Okon, let me quickly ask Dr. Kelechi. She talked about probably up to now Nigerians were not used to, the functions of the new regulatory institutions, and up to now we are still giving, that powers to NNPC. Don't you think the two regulatory, institutions, yours and Hajia's own, needs to embark on sensitization of stakeholders, including media? Or if you have done that, what have you done in that aspect? Because I think I have seen it somewhere, somebody advising the upstream and the Nigerian downstream, midstream, that they should hold on to stakeholders so that you can get information from them about things that you need to know, memorandum, whatever, information, and you will be able, to interact with them. It's going to, help, your job. What do you think about this?
I mean, that's absolutely spot on. Let me take you back to August 2021 when Mr. President assented the PIB into PIA, basically into law. One of the things that he did as well was to inaugurate the PIA Implementation Committee, the steering committee. And that drew membership. It was cross-functional, and it drew membership from the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, FIRS, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Finance, and of course the regulatory agencies themselves. And I happen to serve in the capacity of the working group of that steering group, that steering committee. And the mandate is one of the things that you stated. So the working group is compartmentalized into stakeholder engagement and management, fiscal and legal, that says of the responsibility of drafting the regulations for the industry, finance and admin, and then strategy. Now, the stakeholder committee, the work group, is actually supposed to work cross-functionally to ensure that the mandates of the new regulatory institutions are well distilled into the public space, into public domain. And that's exactly what they're gearing up to do. Incidentally, there's a meeting, but for the fact that we were all focused on getting the NNPC Limited cut over today, I mean, that happened today, that would have already happened. And I can assure Nigerians that in the weeks to come, you would see the impact of the stakeholder engagement, which basically lays out the roles of the regulator vis-a-vis the roles of operators, because NNPC Limited has become an operator from today. Indeed, I heard the chairman of IPPG. IPPG is the Independent Petroleum Producers Group, which basically is the umbrella body for all indigenous producers in country, saying that it is pleased to welcome NNPC Limited into its fold. So NNPC Limited is no different from ExxonMobil, for instance, or from a Seplat as well. So the regulators remain the regulators of the entire industry, including NNPC. So I think Nigerians will begin to appreciate that now that, again, NNPC has become commercialized. And they will understand that they can hold NNPC accountable just like they hold other operators accountable. So in terms of, for instance, the way their business models are operationalized, they can go to NNPC and say, well, your charter says this, and now you're not government, now you're accountable to us. And in days to come, like I said, Nigerians will soon know the difference.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kelechi. While we await for that to happen, I know many of us, are waiting for that to happen to see the day Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission will sanction NNPC for any breach. While we await for that, let me quickly ask Dr. Okon. Yesterday, I was here when Dr. Doyin Salami was talking about the issue of fuel transition, energy transition, and the PIA. And I think yesterday I took 3 points home that he made. He talked about for Africa to remain relevant in this transition. Number one, Africa needs to integrate and flow with the current wave of the transition. And he said, secondly, that Africa needs to transform herself to be an investment destination, whether foreign direct investment or local investments. And the third one, he said, there has to be a conscious plan for intra-trade activities within the continent. So my question now is, so we have to flow with the transition, and yet we're still insisting that our petrol and gas should still be retained in the energy mix. So how do we reconcile, these two issues, flowing and dictating or telling the West that they need to retain the petrol and gas as a transition fuel, part of the energy mix? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I apologize for actually coming late. I had I had to attend to a young teenager who. So I'm happy to be here. I'll take on the questions. I also was at yesterday's briefing, and let me emphasize 2 points. The first is simply that Africa cannot, or I will be even more specific, Nigeria cannot afford to enter energy transition with production and allocation inefficiencies. Okay? And yesterday we also honored Bakindo, and the common phrase that he had always used was energy equity. Okay? Now let's describe the Nigerian trilemma, and I believe this has been covered. People have spoken about it. Okay? We have a failed power system. We have, like you say, queues everywhere. Okay? Despite all attempts, the barriers to entering any business in Nigeria is a significant one. And we cannot, and I think Professor Salami also mentioned that markets are not a dirty word. In some cases, the role of markets. First and foremost, I think we need to understand transition. Transition comes with costs. You cannot impose the transition cost upon an energy system where you already have energy crisis. So the transition suggests that two systems will operate side by side. This is that concept, and I think I want to make that clear. It means, one, you have a low-carbon energy system, which you need to build, alongside with the fossil fuel system you have. But the fossil fuel system, you have not exploited efficiency. The allocation or production efficiency is not there. This is a country that produces a lot of crude oil, exports it, and then brings the refined products. The business model has not changed from when we used to sell cocoa. And I was also teaching a class yesterday, and I said in 2015, when the price of oil came down to about $30, the entire value of oil, okay, for all the commodities it actually could enclose the entire value of all the minerals, solid minerals, or gold, silver, iron ore, you name it, every other commodity. What that means is that we are simply a rentier economy. And so the focus must be that energy transition does not add an additional cost to already inefficient systems. I hope my point. As an economist, the whole concept of energy equity and allowing things to find the appropriate price level is critical, because we could bungle the energy transition with this whole concept of subsidizing petrol. Okay? There are factors that Nigeria needs to consider, and this is established fact. Most countries, to check the demand, you cannot do energy transition and be going to conferences and signing national commitments while you are subsidizing the fossil fuel. Pricing is supposed to be a signal to the market, and this is how things work in real economic sense. So we are now burdening ourselves with additional commitments, which, of course, is an additional cost to our people who are energy poor, cannot, it's a high entry cost to almost any business, and energy is the key to GDP. My second point is also what Professor Salami echoed. We must assess energy transition from the point of view of, if there is a climate change challenge, was it caused by us? Okay, Africa has 17% of the world's population, but the GDP is 3%. And we need to understand what is called the Kuznets environmental curve. You cannot grow your economy on a fossil fuel system without some environmental impact. Energy transition for Africa begins because the Kuznets curve is something that looks like a binomial distribution, right? When you have attained a point, that maximum point, that is where Africa's energy transition begins. It is not at the beginning where production inefficiency, allocation inefficiency, pricing that basically, in other economies, okay, even Ghana imposes what is normally called Peruvian taxes. Okay, we're economists, so we can't avoid using big terms, right? What is a Peruvian tax? It is simply a tax imposed when there is a negative externality. Okay? So we are taxing a small tax on fizzy drinks because there is a diabetes epidemic. All right? So we tax cigarettes, sin tax, and so on. There are all things of, but petrol, in spite of all its negative adverse effects, we subsidize. So that is where the difficulty lies for Nigeria. We must look at energy equity, yes, produce your fossil fuel, but it is critical that it finds the right pricing level. Government should not spend resources encouraging the production and use or subsidizing things that have negative external effects. That is the economic argument. Okay? Now, we can go into exchange rates and things like that, whether it should be 165 or now it is whatever it is. But again, we must be careful about this fixed mentality and fixed pricing. Nigeria does not control the price of oil. And the last couple of days, or last week, and I've been talking about gas pricing mechanisms and oil pricing mechanisms. We do not fix that price. The price of oil, you know, it's a function of many, many other factors. I don't want to digress. But I would summarize thus. I repeat those 2 points. Energy transition has its costs. And if, as a country, we are jumping on the bandwagon, okay, on adding that cost to an inefficient energy system that is fossil fuel based, we are going to impoverish ourselves the more. In other words, we will enhance energy poverty, energy unavailability, and of course we are energy insecure. Despite all the oil you have, you are energy insecure. You have a power problem. These are facts. I'm not, so we must look at things from that economic prism, that you cannot be subsidizing things with negative externalities, and then you want to jump on the energy transition bandwagon. The answer is you are trying to accomplish the impossible. You know, what they call the Mundell-Fleming theorem, the impossible trinity, where you are trying to control anyway, interest rates, inflation, and exchange rates at the same time. Okay? It's called the impossible trinity. Nigeria needs to begin to adhere strictly to certain economic rules. You mentioned fiscal rules of general application. We cannot have rules that create these distortions and impoverish us the more. You know, as somebody who has worked in the industry, the last calculations I did on subsidy was between 2006 and 2018, $63 billion had been spent on subsidies. I don't know the numbers because I think subsequently I left the minister's office, you know, but that is it's a sad spectacle of putting up $63 billion and burning it with, lighting a match to it, because you cannot say what that $63 billion has done other than the 5 cars I have in my parking lot and everybody wanting, all of my nephews and cousins wanting to drive their own cars. So that would be my position. We need to retrace our steps. Energy transition is useful, but it can only start when you are at the peak of your own Kuznets curve. And so that we don't adopt things that worsen our poverty. Then we need to deal with the issues that deal with the inefficiency, the production inefficiency and allocation inefficiencies that we have in the current, instead of low carbon, we'll say high carbon energy systems. Before we jump on to low carbon, and because you have to find a way to fund it. And even at this point, at the state of our economy and the state of our indebtedness, I am not sure there are many people who are queuing up to lend you money to do energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. While he is talking about the issue of efficiency, you know, in the industry and energy equity, let me quickly ask Professor Iledari, while the people who are saying that they want to save the climate, they want to save the environment, well, they are putting their priorities on clean, reliable, and affordable energy. Africa have put their own priority as they are talking about affordable, reliable, and clean. Our own first priority is affordability, while their own first priority is clean. So how do we reconcile these two? Do you think, has Africa made their voice, loud enough for the proponents of people that are trying to save the environment? Have they heard us loud and clear, or we need to shout very well for them to understand what we are saying?
Well, thank you again. Whatever we say must border on our personal experience. I think whenever I run into difficulties, I look at a simple Yoruba adage. Whatever you call your calabash is what they will use it for. And I've been fortunate enough, not because of my doing, to be in the company that I find myself. I don't want to use the word alone, but I was alone in most cases. Most of the time, actually, because of the discipline that I find myself. Africa is not on the mind of anybody when you see them sit down and talk. Beyond when they think that something that is negative, they are waiting for us to die. I'm just sorry. If you look at COVID-19, they are shocked. The Western world is shocked that Africans are not dropping dead per minute. You can check it out. And the way to explain it away is, maybe we are not keeping the data. Or is it a global energy policy division? If you are there, and there will be a little bit something, and I'm sure Prof can tell me the same thing in Harvard, where she was, or MIT. When you find yourself alone, that is the only time they become conscious. And that's why if you listen to my tribute yesterday, and forgive me if I make a conclusion and it looks as if it's not empirical based. If the late Secretary General were not present at that COPA 26 and made the statement that he made, the communique that will have come out after the meeting will have been defunding petroleum development. So basically, even as I agree that we must tread softly and make sure that we speak the transition talk, and I've said it over again, we must talk the talk. We must make the world believe that we buy into the transition dynamic. The only thing I have advised Africa to do is to walk it strategically. And we need to move away, and I hope you are picking some of these things from your question. We need to move away from ad hoc response to issues. We need to have strategic thinking and planning to be able to fit into the global. The world is a village now, whether we like it or not. It's a global space that whatever happens is reacted to almost instantaneously, even before it dies down. Yes, and I know you didn't ask me that question. You see, the strategic goal of NMPC Limited from today, 6 months after the passage of it's now profit maximization. They need to begin to think. They cannot find themselves opposing Shell, Total, Ajib, where they have the majority share from profit maximization philosophy going forward. That is what it means to be NMPC Limited, which simply means they must sacrifice the maximization of public policy goals, which is what they are used to. They must always nail on the cross the agency role that they so much like. And it's going to be difficult unless there's a complete restructuring of the mindset. And all of this fits into the transition to renewable energy. There's nothing wrong in that as being part and parcel of what we're doing. And that's why I think I've suggested the way to address some of the things we are talking about is clean or affordable is to begin to have a functioning energy council. That the people you put there is not a patronage of rewarding political followers, but looking at technocrats. And when it comes to the energy sector, there are certain professional competence that is required. And that's why if you look at the system, like it's talking about efficiency, you must think in terms of the professional level apart from the political level. You must separate the political appointment from the professional appointment, and you cannot mix them. And it's done in the US. There's no agency of the government that doesn't have political appointment. They call them assistant secretaries. But the professionals are untouchable in discharging of their professional responsibility, and that's why I can be quoted. That's why Trump did not get away with murder. So in this energy transition phase, there's nothing we can do about that. It just reminded me when I first got to the US some 40 years ago. People were smoking in the hospital. You can be pregnant, and people will be smoking around you without thinking. You can be in the plane that will say, no smoking area, smoking area. And you know smoke moves all over the place. But now, they have to create a small thing for people smoking to go and hide. You can't smoke in the public anymore. You must be prepared. And I'm going to give you the microphone back. Listen, think about Kodak. Remember what we call wait and get? Uh-huh. They were not prepared. You do not want that to happen to you. And if you do not want to find yourself, I call it quadrema of the energy sector: inefficiency, inequity, ineffectiveness, and unethical behavior. You are going to get lost if you don't get all of this out. Because it's not about you. All you need to do, all of you knew me when I was younger, don't you? Yes, you have greater population of young people that are not being taken care of the way I was taken care of. I mean, when I was in secondary school, government would give me a ticket. I would not go to my village. I'll go all the way from Sokoto to Port Harcourt for a holiday. Who does that now? But why should it not continue? If we have managed our resources efficiently, effectively, we cannot go into energy transition without thinking of that environmental sustainability curve. Yes. The peak of it is when we can be thinking of green energy. We don't have money to pay for green energy.
Thank you, Prof. My next question would be to the two regulatory bodies present here, talking about efficiency. Doctor spoke about efficiency. Before we even think about transiting, we need to bring up our institution to be very efficient. And Prof, now to talk about efficiency. So I will start with you, Dr. Kelechi. Talking about efficiency, with all sincerity, what should we expect from Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission next year? Our peers in other countries have gone very far. We are still lagging behind. That is just the plain fact. And we need to act very fast, and the time to act is now. There is no lip service to the issue of this race. We just have to run, or we get pushed aside. What do you think, in your thinking, next year by now, before this conference, what do you think we should expect from Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission in terms of, this implementation of PIE and your core mandate, achieving your core mandate? Before I get to Dr. Zainab. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Okay, so going back to achieving efficiency, you know that efficiency is a function of resources. So resource availability, resource utilization, basically. And of course, those resources have to be fit for purpose. You have to have resources that are both willing and able to, first of all, understand what the mandate is before they then undertake the courses of action that are consistent with implementing the mandate. So the very first thing that the Upstream Commission is doing is to understand its resource base from an efficiency perspective. And that is to undertake a skills gap analysis, because the mandate is different, especially in the energy transition era. You need skills, you need competencies that help you dissect that mandate and then before you implement. So for instance, for the very first time, the upstream regulator is seized of the responsibility of economic regulation. And that's the capacity in which I function. So you expect a whole new directorate that is both able to understand market dynamics before it then steers the industry in a particular direction. You know that by law, we were not allowed to touch the rank and file, the employees in any of the regulatory institutions. So we have to work with the current resources that we have. But we are trying to optimize to say, okay, what can you do? What efficiencies do you bring to the table? How can we train you to achieve the new mandate? What skills do you need to upgrade to enable you function in your new capacity, for instance? And then there's a whole new change, culture change program that we need to institutionalize as well. And that has all started. So on top of the transformation that the Commission is going through from being a DPR, a directorate, to being a commission with core mandates, which is now insulated from political interference, we're also faced with the day-to-day workings of the Commission. Like Dr. Okon said, a transition implies that you have a regime of the new and the old. And that's exactly where we are right now. And that's exactly where the regulatory institutions, upstream and midstream and downstream, are right now. So on the one hand, we're grappling with resources that we have inherited, and on the other hand, we're trying to steer the organization into the direction that we need it to go. So this time next year, we would have had a crystallization of all the programs that we're trying to institutionalize. So the change management program would have been completed. The skills gap analysis would have been undertaken. The right pegging in the right holes would have been undertaken as well. And people would have come to terms with their new mandates in line with the PIA. So you would have an overall more efficient, more transparent, more responsive, more accessible institution that is alive to its responsibilities, both willing and able to discharge that mandate without let or hindrance.
Thank you. Dr. Zainab, the same question to you.
Okay, so we have one, right? We've agreed that we're going to have pledges, which is portals where we can network and talk to the day-to-day people. And then that same portal avail the students and anyone in the oil and gas sector, most especially through this platform, to also to bring solutions or, also bring complaints or even initiatives that will be beneficiary. Secondly, more policies. Like we said, my able executive commissioner just told you, there's a lot. It's not that easy. This is something that has been in the works for years to come. So there's going to be some stumbling blocks, and when it was written, the updates, all of that, we have to consider it, then get on our feet to start running so we can deliver properly and well expected anyways. The third one is sensitization must go out. I think one of the main issue we have in the government is sensitization. The government actually does a lot, but we're not reaching maybe the right people, the day-to-day people. They don't know what we're doing, what's out there, what's going on. So, our pledge is to be an avenue or a platform where we'll communicate with the end users directly, okay? As long as they come to embrace us or bring their issues to us. Then, fourthly, like my EC said, crystallization, bringing everything together. From bringing everything together, then there will be a change management program, and then we hit the ground running. It is not going to be, it's not going to be very easy. There's nothing that's easy, that's good. But we're ready to face the challenge. We're ready to take the bull by its horns. But I have one appeal. I think I've said this several times. We cannot do it alone. We need your help. It's that simple. It's a collaboration, it's a handshake. Then the last but not the least is collaboration with other government agencies. Okay, since we know your pains, our job will be to find the right organization or the right agency to discuss with. So for example, if we're sitting in a meeting with CBN and there's 1 million youths that want to go into the oil and gas sector, right, in the midstream or downstream, so you just want to be a licensee for a gas plant, we'll be able to talk to CBN and say, hey, we have a list of people, that maybe if you did this program tended towards oil and gas, or most especially gas, and then, this will shape what CBN is writing in its policies or the grants it's giving. So that's what I know that other agencies do now, but we need to piece it together for all of you. And then also, last but not the least, is put out on our website the readily available opportunities that you can tap into. Those are our commitments. I think the rapporteurs were getting this. So when we come next year, you'll be able to ensure that we've met our mandate, and I assure you that will be done. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to say that, the rapporteurs, I hope you are taking note of that, because next year, those questions will be asked, and we're going to assess them based on what they said, this year. Thank you. The time is already, fast moving. Let me quickly, ask the members of the panel to maybe give their last, comment or remarks. Let me start from Dr. Okun. Your last remark before we wind up.
Okay, thank you. I think energy transition, the discussions around it, and will be with us. Every African country will have to develop a pathway towards it. There are strategic levers that are important for any nation, and I divide them broadly into three. There is the financial, there are government mandates and incentives, then there is technology. We must be financially prudent. There is no substitute for running an economy well. It's whatever energy system you choose to adopt, you need to be in good financial health because you require investment, etc. Now, if you create an enabling environment, remove barriers to entry, etc., which is what the PIA seeks to do, and many other sectors in the Nigerian economy, then of course you would have the sort of investment in all other areas apart from just fossil fuels. So there are different incentives that are. The second point are government interventions. Let us be very careful as to what we adopt. And I'll give a good example. That example has to do with if you decide, for example, we want to go solar energy and all of this, we should be able to manufacture solar panels in Nigeria. That's what grows GDP. Energy transition must not be an importation spree. Okay? We need to put hundreds tens and millions of people in work. So the integration that I think Dr. Zainab is talking about needs to take the form of where the different agencies understand what the policies of the industrialization, how that happens, backward integration. All of this need to come to play. We do not want to be dumping grounds for Chinese solar panels because you are employing or you're trying to do energy transition. When those are manufactured at home here, you create jobs and you create opportunity for your people. So we need to be thoughtful about what you adopt. The third is really technology. What is going to be the critical technologies of the future? Of course, it is important that where you have many of these countries, maybe in fact my former alma mater, Imperial College, they say they're no longer going to do petroleum engineering. Well, if you have 36 billion barrels of oil, and in fact all of Africa is surrounded now by new oil discoveries, they will need petroleum engineers. So what you adopt as technology, you do not want to just follow after things. You need to understand what is best for your country. I mean, Namibia has made one of the, I'm told, one of the largest discoveries of oil. What is it going to do with oil reserves of in excess of 50 billion barrels? So you can't be telling them that, oh, don't train petroleum engineers. And when they go to Imperial College, Imperial say, no, all we do is renewable energy. We don't do petroleum engineering anymore. These are the things that we need to address. Strategic levers, financial, government intervention, and technology. Those three areas, the strategy for energy transition to work for us. But the best thing to do is to ensure that energy is evaluated on an even basis. One energy source does not have to go through some kind of a subsidy, and then others have to struggle. I think that is the kind of sets of policies that would help us navigate energy transition for all that it is worth. And finally, production efficiency, allocation efficiencies, those are key things for any energy system you are in. We have not shown the capability of addressing that for the fossil fuel or high carbon. And if you are going to enter into low carbon energy systems, then you must make sure that it is efficient and it runs well for the Nigerian people. It's not just an additional cost, because that will aggravate energy poverty. Thank you.
Thank you. Prof, your own last remark?
Well, thank you again. I think, and I believe, and I know my president will tell me I'm optimistic, the PIA 2021 is worth celebrating, because some of the challenges that we have in the energy sector, especially the oil and gas, with respect to efficiency, effectiveness, equity, and ethics, are clearly addressed. And I still believe if we implement it accordingly, and I don't want to give an impression that I know the way to implement it. No, I don't reside here. I look from outside. I'm not an insider. But there are, if you look at the 5 objectives of PIA 2021, they have clearly stated how to attain efficiency. It's there. How to even put us on the right path with respect to the design of the PIA. Now, the implementation is a different. Nigeria is not necessarily without good policy. I want to continue to suggest that we do not abandon what has been debated, and actualization is the only thing that is remaining. And I will continue to say the success of the PIA is rested on 3 institutions: the commercial institution, the policy institution, and the regulatory institutions. Each of the institutions is designed to be independent without necessarily paying attention to one another. And none should try to usurp the authority that is granted to the other. They are not substitutable, they are complementary. And they should move away from territorial protection. Are the institutions properly equipped? The answer is no. And that's where manpower development and manpower deployment is very critical if we want to quickly use the PIA to attain the level of that environmental sustainability curve before we can move into transition. And finally, this is just from me now, as a professor of what ought to be. Yes, the political expediency must be sacrificed for economic efficiency if these young people are to have a future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Zainab? Your last.
Thank you. For me, it's 4 things. My older brothers have spoken well. First and foremost, we need to take our future into our own hands, which means all of you should come on board in a respectable and realistic manner of demanding your rights. Okay? That means you've taken your time, you've researched what's going on, and you know what you need to get you to where you need to be. Secondly, please stop demarketing Nigeria. When you go on the internet and you say or spread bad things about Nigeria, no job is going to come to you. Nobody will invest. So let's please be mindful. That does not mean you don't speak your mind, but people go and read the temperature of where they want to invest. And if they get 10 people in that room, let's say another company wants to invest, and they go on the internet and they do a on-the-spot survey, and they see out of 10, 9.5 Nigerians are saying, I'm tired of this country. Nobody is going to come. So take it to your stride. Take your country personal. Be the brand for your country. And you take ownership by guiding those of us in government to know what you want. Because at the end of the day, it is about the people. We can write good policies. If they are not advantageous to you, they are just policies on dust. So that's my takeaway from you. We're available for further questions. It's a public office. If you go to our website, you can reach us. So you don't stop here. This is actually the beginning for you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kelechi?
Thank you very much. Basically to say that from the Commission's perspective, the energy transition has become pivotal rallying cry for us. And we've developed roadmaps with which to achieve that transition as the regulator of the upstream sector in country. So, of course, it's no longer news that gas has been adopted as a transition fuel. But in some quarters, people also say it's a destination fuel. In other words, because it's all hydrocarbons have been extrapolated to be with us for years to come, it means that gas would always form part of our energy mix, even in 2060, when we have pledged that it would attain net zero. And the way we're going about that in the Commission is to say, okay, if this is also going to be part of the energy mix, then we need to focus on how to continuously decarbonize. And how do we do that? By looking again at our processes, at the way that we currently do business, of exploitation, exploration, production, development across the entire upstream value chain. So we're working progressively to say, if we cannot leapfrog because we lack the funding with which, or the technology with which to be at the level of our colleagues in the Western world, again, because like Dr. Kohn said, it's a transition, so it's inevitable that the old and the new would coexist at least for some time. And because there's also a concomitant realization that we cannot achieve our base load today only by reference to renewables, then everybody has to work together as an industry to make the change in the way we attain that allocative efficiency that the two professors have actually talked about in the industry. But for us in the Upstream Commission, we are focused on achieving that. It's a journey rather than a destination. So every step we take would at least be consistent with bringing into existence that state of affairs within our expectation, within our contemplation, that we need to decarbonize our processes, that we need to put our country on the solid path of energy security and energy prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kelechi, for the roundup. At this point, before we round up, this session, I think it will be very fair for me to allow, some few questions from the audience. I don't know whether we should take 3 questions. Mr. President, should we take how many questions? Okay. So can I get maybe a question from this this row, this and the other one? I think the number of hands are not even much. Give it to the Prof first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Name,
Akin YM is my name. My question or comment actually goes to Dr. Okon, and part of it to Professor Ledare and the others. Dr. Okon talked about inefficiency, gross inefficiency in the system. Yes, there's gross inefficiency in the system. But actually, I think that gives a unique opportunity to transit from that inefficient system to an efficient system. So the transition doesn't preclude that. Actually, that's where Nigeria is, and it has to transit from an inefficient system. In other places, they are more efficient, but they are still transiting to a new system that will be more efficient and support sustainable human development. In the context of Nigeria, I think what Professor Ledare said, which is what trumps inefficiency, or maybe strengthening efficiency, is the political economy of Nigeria. Politics trumps policy, politics trumps economics. And when you have that together, the inefficiency becomes larger and becomes more difficult to solve. And a simple illustration is the PIA and the subsidy we are talking about. So, so until we solve the political economy issue and let institutions be strengthened, policy to be implemented appropriately, we are going to be at this low level equilibrium circulating. And I'm not a pessimist, but given the history of regulatory agencies in Nigeria, NCC, NEC. Again, this issue of political economy comes in. So how are we going to solve this problem? It's an open question for all of us. Thank you.
Let's take the next question before the answer.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fauzia Abdullahi, and I've been listening. When I listen to things, I like to look at the negative aspects. What are the risks we have to take? What is the possibility that all this will not end up 100% the way we accept it? We've been told that transition will come at a cost. It's not going to be easy. There are lots of stumbling rocks. So what are the steps we are placing to make sure that even if we do stumble, we don't stumble too far behind what we have planned? Like, how much are we willing to spend on knowledge, acquiring enough knowledge? Like our professor said, coal is dead, and now it has become energy. Even carbon we are trying to eradicate. How are we so sure one day it's not going to become energy? Transition is not static, it's dynamic. I'm sure about 100 years ago, people did not know that fossil fuel or coal could be this important. So I'm thinking about research, knowledge. We have other countries that are way ahead of us. We can learn from them. We can copy their ideas. They are willing to teach. What I'm suggesting is that our youths who are willing to learn are sent there to learn how they do it, the way they do, the risk they take. So we know that, okay, yes, this is what is coming. We are prepared for it. We are prepared for the negative aspects. And if they come, we have solutions for them. We know what will come, how it will come. We need the knowledge. You see, one of my favorite scientists, Albert Einstein, said, it's not all about intelligence, it's about curiosity. The higher your curiosity, the higher you go. So I'm curious. My fellow youths were curious. We want to know how they do it. Why Japan is the most advanced country in technology. You see, we cut down trees. It's a lot of effect on the climate, the global warming and everything. Japan have a system of removing wood from a tree without cutting it down. They harvest their wood, but they do not cut it down. We need to learn these techniques in order to get us to a better Nigeria, the Nigeria of our dreams and the future. I say we invest more on knowledge, empowering our youth with more knowledge, so that by the future, they have enough knowledge to carry us further. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabia. Thank you. Any more questions? The gentleman there.
Good afternoon.
Can you make it brief, please?
All protocols observed.
Thank you.
My question is on the current volatility of AGO price. On daily basis, the price of AGO climbs and it's affecting SMEs and MAN. It seems that the corresponding increase in the price of crude and that of the AGO price in Nigeria, they are not matched. I market AGO. We found out that when the price was AGO price was about 98, diesel was selling at about 450. Now the price rose to about 130. Diesel price shot to about 750. Now the price has dropped to about 100 or below 100. We are still buying AGO at about 750, 760. Why the market price is about 800, 830. I don't know if the authority is looking at it. I know AGO is deregulated, but I think there should be a body to look at it so that Nigerians will not suffer too much. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Okay, let's take the final one, the lady.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Fatima Dalhatu. All protocols duly observed. My question is to Dr. Ofegbu, please. I'd like to ask, in our engagements with international bodies, so EU, OECD, investors, how strongly do we advocate for a just and equitable transition? Or are we constrained by our need for funding for those strategic roadmaps and programs that we want to implement? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will allow Prof to take the first question, which borders around issue of efficiency, transition. There is a transition, while our own seems like we're transitioning from inefficiency to efficiency. Spoke about the first question.
Well, Prof, I'm sure you remember what you taught many of your proteges, the production possibility frontier, right? Those level in which when you are at the Pareto optimality and efficiency level, it is impossible for someone to be better off without someone being worse off. And the only thing that can move that production possibility frontier is knowledge and technology. So efficiency is at different level, depending on the concept of opportunity cost, the foregone opportunity. And basically what this young lady is saying, and if I could allow me to look at that from the point of view of efficiency, nobody transfers technology. No, you must acquire it. And the way to acquire technology that can drive your efficiency from one level to the other is through education. And no nation can grow faster than its intellectual capacity. And when your intellectual capacity is not growing fast enough, inefficiency will reign in the system. What Japanese did was to send their people to the United States to get degrees. What China did, and I went to school with a lot of Chinese who returned back to China, and I've been privileged to be in Beijing, and I think you were there, you remember, when we went through that, is it a museum of science, and you could see the time in which there was a change. When Mao came, he wanted to make sure that the intellectuals are subjugated, and he did. When Deng came, in 1991, he resuscitated the power of intellectual. And Professor Salami said it yesterday. The per capita economy of Nigeria in 1991 is higher than that of China. Go and check the records. So that efficiency issue, and I think I wrote a paper in which I call it trilemma of the petroleum sector in Nigeria: inefficiency, inequity, ineffectiveness, and unethical behavior. And PIA addressed those four. Implementing it is the key. I think where I disagree with you is the idea that we have to join with the people that are already in the peak of the costness curve. We are going to be a loser because we are at the bottom of that curve. So whatever we can do to improve efficiency to get to the top, we need to do that, and then we must talk the talk. Otherwise, they will abandon us because we don't have any money anywhere. When you are spending 1/4 of your budget annually over the last 10 years to subsidize petroleum, thereby even increasing the environmental damage. But the key is not keeping ASU out of the university for nearly a year, and then spending 1/4 of your budget on subsidizing petroleum. At times I wonder who they are subsidizing. And at the end of it, you maximize the social welfare loss. We call it dead weight loss in economics, right? When you price below equilibrium, nobody wins. Inefficiency kills an economy, and political expediency lock the gate of prison and thrown away, and it's very difficult to recover. Mark my word. Political expediency going forward must be sacrificed the way economic efficiency has been sacrificed in the past. The special advisor said it yesterday. You need to listen to economists. You will never get one with one hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. It was, the President Truman that said that, give me an economics with one hand. He doesn't want the two hand, from another hand. He wants from an economics with one hand. The next question, I think it's that of the young lady who talks about the issue of research. And she raised concern about, while we're talking about decarbonizing, our fuel, how sure are we that tomorrow we will not wake up and say that we need carbon again? So I will throw that question to Dr. Okon to answer.
It's quite interesting. There is a concept called creative destruction. It's by Joseph Schumpeter. Good. I mean, that's... well, do not be worried. I think about changes that will happen in the future. But as I said to class a couple of weeks ago, what is strategy? Strategy is positioning for some future outcomes. So there's a strategy for a low oil price, a strategy for disappearance of oil as and I think Sheikh Yamani used to be quite eloquent about the Stone Age and how it did not disappear simply because we ran out of stone. So the key thing to the oil age or the gas age or whatever people may wish to term them is that the strategist positions for different outcomes. So it is not one scenario that would prevail. It is aligning yourself and preparing yourself for different scenarios. So as a young lady or young man studying, especially seeking to educate yourself, be open-minded about, don't be too deterministic. Let me use that term in terms of the outcome. The outcome is not, that's why I detest fixed prices, where you go to an approving entity and say the price is X. Well, the price may be X, but once there is something disruption in the marketplace, the efficient price, the price at which that market can function, will not be X. It has moved. Everybody knows that PQ that we have. So you need to be flexible because, some of the things that were supposed to be destructive, look at our leapfrogging opportunities, okay? Thankfully, Nigeria didn't have to build a telephone network based on distributing lines across the entire country. Now, technology led to cellular phones, and now you have how many million people? Instead of the 7 or so million that used to have NITEL lines, we now have 100 million people who can communicate, okay? And this is a good thing. The old system is dead and buried. There are new systems coming in. So a well-trained, this is what I say always, that the best way to put subsidy is education and health. That's the great equalizer. Because once the mind is developed, okay, the possibilities are endless. The possibilities are endless. So again, a strategist prepares positions for different outcomes. You don't position for, it has to be the 2050. People are mentioning 2050. Others say 2060. How do those numbers come about? You need to be flexible. It might be earlier. It might be very much into the future. look at energy from this point of view, and there are many things that a country like Nigeria could do, and that's why I said cleverly that a combination of an interagency approach, an understanding of industrial policy, an understanding of how you can do backward integration, those are the things that China have done. I mean, they send people abroad, Deng Xiaoping completely changed the outlook. Mao would have run that country completely in ruins. So it is important to look at it from that perspective. Education is key, but an education that is flexible enough and is not dogma, that allows for, like you said, curiosity. That curiosity will lead to new and better ways of doing things. So that's what our country needs to invest on, and that is what irritates us about the kinds of expenditure on burning fossil fuel, when such a thing could create citadels. Nigerian universities are barely ranked. Our professors are not well paid, and so on and so forth. Those are the things we need to contend with. I mean, someone compared the salaries, for example, of a professor and a member of the National Assembly. And it's incredible, where the minimum qualifications are completely different. So those are our challenges we need to address, but we must, investing in education is investing in all of our futures. So that is really the key, the outcome, the great minds, the great minds, or the people who made this easy, the laptop, the iPhones, the iPad, and all of those people who were curious, who, as Steve Jobs would say, that he learned calligraphy. He learned, that was what interested him. And so when he came to make a computer, he chose, instead of one font, he chose to have different fonts, and today we have a new world. So my hope and my prayer for you is that you pursue that, and our system would address education, health, because this would be what will have healthy minds and healthy bodies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. The next question has to do with the issue of AGO. Economics says that prices are upward, flexible, and downward rigid. They are rigid, they don't normally go down, they keep going up. Hajia Zainab, can you help us with that?
It's quite simple. It's foreign exchange. How much is the dollar, or how much is the naira to a dollar? These are businessmen, so they do the math. But all my elders have said here, we're getting there. You have technocrats now in political appointments, mixed in with some political appointees. I'm a technocrat. I'm the most horrible person when it comes to politics. I'm a straight shooter, but I'm a technocrat, and I do my job, and I think I do it well. So we're getting there. Then if you notice, Doctor and myself were very young to be executive directors. Back in those days, you're talking people in their 50s, 60s. We're in our 40s. So we're making the move, slowly but surely. It cannot be done at once. It cannot be. Because some of the people that will be taken out could be your parents, your dad, your mom, then they can't pay your school fees. So there is a it's true. So there has to be that transition also, because I like be realistic with people, okay? That is what it is. If you go home and you see your dad, and then all of a sudden I'm employed and your dad is back home, who pays your school fees? I'm not gonna come to your house and pay your school fees. So it cannot be done together. It has to be done simultaneously, handing over process, yes? So just aid, again, and abet in that. Now, for the lady that talked about knowledge, we have a lot of it in Nigeria. You don't need to go anywhere. The question is platforms. Again, I'll give you an example. The FIRS, they have what they call tax debates, where students come and perform. starting from class 1. Class 1s with debate, they go. In the same event where CEOs are seated, Shell, Exxon Mobil, like a beauty brand, different people, and they listen to perspective of argument. And it was the most engaging moment of my entire life because I was able to take down what are people thinking, what are people's position. The youths were challenging themselves. So again, women, we do so much effortlessly and graciously. This is a powerful audience. Maybe you come up with a debate among not just the petroleum engineers, because, again, circle of life, education, government, policy, academia, right? Well, that's education. It all connects, yeah? Agriculture, get the right people in the room. We should stop inviting only people in oil and gas. Get PAMSEC agriculture on the table, PAMSEC health. Get everyone in a room, and these students talk to each other. Let's watch them do drama amongst themselves. We might not admit that is a good idea, but before they leave or you communicate, we'll gather things we'll all go home to and implement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kelechi. The last question, I think, was directed to you directly by the lady there.
Thank you so much for that question. Yeah. So, it's been a journey. I remember when I first took office as the Special Advisor Legal to the Minister of State Petroleum Resources. That was in 2019. I was also privileged to be appointed by OECD as the co-chair of the Policy Dialogue on Natural Resources. And that was just in my own capacity. But I was representing Nigeria, and that's a 78 country forum. Now, in those initial days in 2019, I can tell you for free that the attitude towards the energy transition was very dismissive. Oh, what sort of nuisance is this? Oh, we have 37 billion barrels reserves of oil. Oh, we have 202 TCF of gas with an upside of 600 TCF of gas. What do they expect us to do? I beg, please, those guys should just leave us to achieve our base load and get on with the exploitation of our hydrocarbon resources. We didn't even want to broach dialogue. But over time, and that was the space, COVID happened, you know that, but the interaction continued virtually. And it became clear to all, because even the COVID made it clear that energy, just dimensioned on hydrocarbon resources, was not going to be sustainable. And so the narrative began to shift. And we said, okay, this energy transition thing, you're right, we need to make the transition. However, for the transition to be complete, we need funding, we need infrastructure, we need technology, none of which we have. And so, of course, we need viable partnerships, because the money to fund that transition can't come from a country that is stuttering on the brink of collapse. Even the finance minister said it, that we're basically surviving as a country. But we still have international obligations because we're a member of the international polity, the Committee of Nations, like they call it. So we knew that the energy transition had come to stay. So we flipped the narrative again. I've been in rooms with the minister where we say, okay, because government doesn't stop, because fees not fees, what you call that, salaries have to be paid, because hospitals need to be built, roads constructed, social engineering occasioned and effectuated in the populace. We need funds with which to do those today. But we also need to think about the energy transition. So we were one of the pioneers. In fact, the number of speeches I've written on just transition, uncountable. I think at every forum that we had the opportunity of speaking at, we made the case for the just transition. Basically saying that while we recognize that we would need to make that transition, there cannot be a single pathway to that energy transition. Whatever pathway is ultimately adopted has to recognize the specificities of the circumstances in each nation. So recognize that we have a burgeoning population, for instance. Recognize that right now, Nigeria is estimated to be about 200 million people. In 2030, that number is going to be about 250 million. And by 2060, that's projected for net zero, we will be 400 plus million and the third most populous country in the world. Out of the about 100 million people that are without access to energy in sub-Saharan Africa, did I say 100 million? 600 million in sub-Saharan Africa, 100 million of them reside in Nigeria. Access to good cooking fuels, about 100 million as well don't have access in country. So today we have to make provisions for those people while thinking about the energy transition. So that's where the whole concept of the just transition emerged from. And so we've made that case and that's probably why in the last months, they started to see that it is inevitable that we need to commercialize our gas resources. And so in effect, we need to use hydrocarbons to transit out of hydrocarbons, basically. So that narrative, that story, that perspective has been well told and well received internationally.
Thank you very much, Doctor. As we round up completely from this session today, I think some of the key points that we need to take home is that all of us in this hall, we are very happy that PIA has been signed as a law to govern the institutions of petroleum industry in Nigeria. And secondly, we want the regulators that are here to know that, or extend this message to your chief executives, that we are behind you and we want you to succeed. But for you to succeed, we have recognized some inefficiency in the system. We have scholars here, professionals, people that had been in the system for long, people that have been in the classroom, people that have been in other countries, have studied how things are being done in other countries. They have recognized that there's an inefficiency in our system. We need to make our system efficient so that we'll be able to succeed. 30 years ago, we have many countries today that are superpowers today in the world. 30 years ago, Nigeria is better than them. But today, Nigeria, when you look at the global map of GDP per capita, you will see Nigeria is nowhere to be found. Those countries that we are better off than in 30 years ago, today they are the one, occupying the large space, in that map. So we really want you to succeed. And please don't be mad, about our impatience. We really want to see things, work in Nigeria. And if it's support, we are willing to give you that support. Extend the message to your chief executives. Just like Prof said, that we need a functioning energy council in Nigeria. We don't want any, ad hoc, programs, plans that at the end of the day will not see the light of the day. They will just be on a paper for the media, to see. But at the end of the day, we will not achieve it. We want a situation that every plan from the beginning to the end, to the execution stage, would be followed meticulously so that we will be able to achieve that success. I'm waiting for a day that I will see either Dr. Kelechi or Dr. Zainab will say that, look, I'm resigning my post because the essence of PIA is not being, achieved in the institutions that I'm working. I think we're supposed to start doing that so that people will not take us for a ride. We need to work very fast, and we need to make this to achieve success, in this reform that is ongoing. As from today, NNPC, the new NNPC is up and doing. Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission is up and doing. Nigerian Midstream Downstream Authority is up and doing. We hope that by next year, we will see, the progress being made, and we will be able to, thank you for what you are doing, in your various, establishments. So I would like to bring, this session to an end by thanking you, for appearing. We thank you very much, all the members of the panelists. We thank you very much, for your time. And it is our prayer that Nigeria will be great again. Thank you very much.
Come to this type of forum. I mean, I wasn't particularly happy. I won't mention the name with somebody who sent us a deputy manager to come to. But these people are executive directors that have come in, and honestly, I sincerely appreciate the two of you showing up.
Let me use this opportunity to give an invitation to all of you that next week, Monday, Value Chain Magazine, we are going to have our annual lecture and awards. And let me throw this open invitation to all of you. We're going to give cards, to the executives, but to other ladies and gentlemen, we are inviting you. It's going to take place 10 o'clock in the morning at Fraser Suits here in Central Business Area, where we are going to discuss, on other issues, concerning local content. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please kindly remain seated while we call on the VP membership and liaison for the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Permit me to stand on already established protocols. On behalf of the present, Nigeria Association for Energy Economists, the Council, and members, I want to give this vote of thanks for this year's annual conference, 15th NAIAE International Annual Conference. Indeed, our special thanks go to the Almighty God, who has made it possible for us to be here to do this conference, 15th anniversary. We want to thank everybody, starting with this panel, Roundtable. I want to thank our moderator, Malam Musa Usman, for a wonderful panel moderating. I want to thank the chairman, who is ably represented by Barrister Kelechi Ofebu, the Executive Commissioner, Economic Regulations and Strategic Planning for Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, who double represented also his the Commission's Chief Executive, Engineer Boyenga Komolafe, supposed to be the chairman of this session. I want to thank my SS, the Authority Chief Executive, who is unavoidable absent because he traveled out of the country, and is here ably represented by our ED, Dr. Zainab Gobri, who is also our Executive Director, Economic Regulations and Strategic Planning, Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. I want to thank our immediate past present on this panel, Professor Wumi Iledare, our mentor in this association. Also want to thank our council advisor, Dr. Tim Okon. Thank you all for coming, for making us proud in this panel. And generally want to thank everybody that have contributed to this great success of this 15th anniversary, starting from the chief host, our indomitable chief host, Executive Secretary, Petroleum Technology Development Fund, Dr. Bello Gusso, who is always able, waiting for anything that will come from Nigerian Association for Energy Economies for approval. We want to extend this thank and special appreciation to you, sir. Thank you very much. I want to thank, our appreciation also goes to the family of Bakindo that we are hosted yesterday at the dinner on Postmorus Fellowship Award of NAE. Want to thank the family, and we place to continue to pray for the family that God will continue to strengthen them and give them comfort at this time of grief. I want to thank our sponsors, starting from our gold sponsor, our platinum sponsor of this 15th anniversary. Starting from our platinum sponsor, PTDF, we are grateful. The gold sponsor, CBN, we thank you. Other sponsors, our silver sponsors, let me mention them, just their names. They are all supportive to NAE. Starting from NMDPRA, Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, the NU, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the Energy Commission of Nigeria, the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, Watersmith Limited, the CPEL, Center for Petroleum, Energy Economics and Law. You're always supportive and always with us. They always send their students to come and continue to be learning points for NAU. Thank you very much, CPEL, the director, the deputy director, and all major sizable number of staff are here. Thank you very much. Want to thank NERC for the wonderful support. Want to thank our dear Tenno Energy Resource Limited, also on the panel. Thank you, Tenno Energy Limited. Not forgetting other members that has contributed for the success of this international conference. I want to thank the LOC, chaired by Dr. Mahmoud Hassan, who is unavoidable absent because he has other engagements. I want to thank all members of LOC, all team members and coordinators. All of them are all detailed in the program. I want to thank the media team. You all have done well. God bless you. I want to thank the technical team, Mr. Kevin and the team. Thank you very much. The MC team, Rich Lipstick Limited, Richmond, God bless you. I want to thank the ushers, the secretariat. In fact, the most important aspect of the success, the participants, the delegates. God bless you all. And we pray that God will take all of us back to our destination safely. God bless you. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Mrs. Priscilla Ekwe, who is the VP Membership and Liaison. Although the conference comes to an end, the conversation on energy transition and climate change continues. Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, immediately after this conference, we'll have the AGM, which continues immediately after. Should you want to gain more knowledge, the Society of Petroleum Engineers Abuja section will be holding a short course. Now, for members of this association, NAEE, it is free of charge. Now, the short course will be on Thursday, the 21st of July, Thursday, by 10 a.m., this same venue. So, SPE, under the leadership of Madam Aminat Madami, invites you to this short course. At this juncture, Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, would like our esteemed speakers to come out for their photograph and, of course, their gift items. Thank you. And once again, a round of applause for them, please. AGM continues shortly. Thank you. The AGM is for registered members only. Registered members only. Thank you. Now, immediately after this.